How's that?
There we go.
Okay, perfect. All right. So I am Workplace Culture Store, and this is organizational cultural data, as you know. So what we're going to be looking at today is parts of what I call the Book of Culture, which is a set of learning and knowledge resources that I've created through Workplace Culture Store. And the goal is to answer those, I guess, 4 questions. What is workplace culture? Why is it vital to success? And can it change, and how? So this is me. I have been teaching the executive classroom for 20 years and started Workplace Culture Store last year to bring all the games and tools and instruction I do for the executive classroom to a broader community. I have that material available in 6 streams, and those are learning and development, leadership, culture, mental health and wellness, creativity and innovation, and charitable giving. So each one of those eventually will have a book of learning and development or a book of creativity and innovation, like we have with the Book of Culture. So what we're going to talk about today. First, I'm going to review just the basic philosophy from which I approach organizational culture so that you get a sense of the angle that I'm coming from and how to make a conscious change with culture, which to many people, although probably not Jeff, to many people it seems unlikely and maybe even impossible to change culture, that it's rather magical thing and there's no changing it. You just have to kind of use what you've got. I don't believe that, and I'm going to show you why. And then later in the presentation, I'll talk about how COVID-19, and as you, Jeff, so beautifully put it, any crisis really uncovers the details of culture. And when you're under duress, culture is so obvious, and it's an excellent time to look carefully because it shows how people handle stress. And so many things about handling stress depend on culture. This is why I thought it would be important to create this webinar. So first, there's only 2 of you, so this is just going to be kind of a fun thing. I always do this at the beginning of a webinar because laughter opens up the mind and awakens awakens the senses. So this is what we're going to do. Jeff, you're going to get the free coaching hour with Michelle because Hillary doesn't want it, frankly. So, we're just going to quickly get a good laugh. We're going to open up our browsers and we're going to pick one of those 6 starts to a browser query. I forgot to, should I, what, why can't I, why don't, and what would happen if. And whatever Google helps you, the sentence that Google helps you finish, whichever one is the funniest, that's the winner. I'm going to try one of them. Hold on. I tried this the other day. It's good for a really quick laugh at the beginning of a webinar. What would happen if... Oh, there's some good ones.
Mine is, I forgot to bring my book in Hindi.
Okay. What if the moon blew up? Or what would happen if the moon blew up? That's a good one. What would happen?
There's a book about that.
Sorry, go ahead.
There's a book about that.
Is there?
It's called Seven Eves, and I totally recommend it. I forgot to remember to forget.
Oh,
There's some really good ones for why can't I?
Oh, hey, Tom. How are you doing?
How are you? I'm doing well, thank you.
Thanks for calling in. We already got started, but we'll just keep going.
Yeah. Oh, no, I've been on the whole time.
What? Well, why didn't you say anything?
Just sitting silently, you know.
Okay, we'll keep going then. Now just a little puzzle to get your thinking muscles going. This is a culture-related phrase that I love and I swear by and I totally agree with. So call out, I'm going to give the first letter to Hillary, and it can be a vowel or a consonant. Which would you like? What did you say? You're muted. H? One lonely little H. Sorry. Okay, Tom's turn.
I think we need a vowel. How about an O?
Okay. Excellent. All right, now Jeff's turn.
Consonant R.
All right, Hillary? I can't hear you, and I can't read lips, babe.
Sorry. Let's go with M.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to pick S. Anybody? Any guesses?
I think we got to get a T.
Okay. It's a business quote. Some of you may have heard it before. I could even tell you who said it. That might give you a clue. Hold on.
Culture eats strategy for breakfast. I know that's the one you hear all the time.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that one, but that's not the one. I'll use that on the next webinar, actually. That's who it is.
Richard Branson.
Yeah. Why? For some reason, my animation isn't working properly there, but you got the point.
Don't come first.
Yeah.
Customers don't come first. Customers don't come first.
Gotcha. That's good. All right. And
Employees.
then employees do.
Employees do.
Nope.
Take care of
Your employees and
they will take care of you. No, they will take care of your customers.
Excellent. Yay. Got it. So had anybody heard that quote before?
Yes.
Yeah, I swear by it, because I do believe very strongly in the idea that the employee experience is paid forward to the customer, and you can create benefits to your customer by improving the experience of your employees, basically. I'm a big proponent of that. So let's get down to business. Enough fun. So as I said earlier, this is part of the Book of Culture. It's a free ebook that I provide on my website, and it's designed to answer the most common questions about culture and to kind of illuminate why culture really matters. And I said a few minutes ago, acknowledge that it seems mysterious and layered and complex, costly, maybe even impossible, but this ebook gives you a lot of practical ways to do it with your available resources, and it shows you how. So this is one of my favorite metaphors. Culture is like a database. And I like that one because culture is so many things coming together to paint a bigger picture. And it's kind of like a pointillism painting. Each little detail plays its part, but you can't change the whole thing at once. As I say here, like any database, culture depends on many small pieces coming together. So if you try to change it from the top down, you will most likely fail. What you've got to do with a database to change the picture that it paints is to add new data. And that has to happen at a small, granular level. And why is this so important? Because culture drives performance. And if you doubt that, I've got many people smarter than me that have written better books than I have that can attest to that. And hopefully everybody on the call agrees with me on that. If you don't, we will debate it later. So the way I look at culture is that it has strata, very much like soil. At the very bottom of the bedrock are the values, and they really determine everything that goes above it. The beliefs, they are values translated to individual issues, and then norms are standards of behavior that draw from beliefs and values, and then language is the words we use to express those beliefs and values. And change in each of these requires you to go to that depth. So at the top, you only have to go to the point where you explain and provide information for that. And then as you go deeper, it has to be a more palpable experience for them until when you get to values, the only way a person's values can change is through a profound emotional and revelatory experience. So those four horsemen of the apocalypse: values, beliefs, norms, and language. I like to give a lot of synonyms for terms like this because not everybody uses those exact terms to describe them. So values, what matters and how much, and beliefs, how the values are expressed at the issue level, and then norms, how beliefs determine standards of behavior, and language, the words we use to express it. And then sometimes you find that people are so kind of wrapped up in the dialects of today's corporate world that they don't even really use the word values. They'll say something like, this is what's important to us, this is why we're in business. Or they may say for beliefs, they'll say, these are principles on which we base our planning and decisions, or what we think is true or even false about business. Come on. And then with norms, what we expect of our leaders and employees in the way of behavior, what is allowed or encouraged and what isn't, and of course what constitutes good performance. And then with the language, our corporate dialect, our brand, our internal branding, those kinds of terminology. So again, let's take a quick look at culture and how to change it. Now, as we said a minute ago, values and beliefs, they're developed early in life. They live deep inside the brain. Very few workplaces can even change the values and beliefs of individual employees. In fact, they resent you even trying. They expect norms and language, however, to change, and they adapt reasonably well to that. And we have kind of a scale showing easy and difficult. It is difficult to change values and beliefs, yes, and it's easy to change language and norms. However, changing language and norms will not have the depth of impact that values and beliefs will. And the approach that I take is I go at all four of them. You can't go from one side or the other because you won't have that full court press that you need on changing culture. So, and then another principle upon which the Book of Culture is based is that culture is like air. Nobody can own it. It doesn't belong to the organization, even though they might believe that. It belongs to the community and the people who create it every day. Every member owns a share, and they decide how their share is managed. That's why it's almost impossible. In fact, I think it is impossible to change a culture by mandate and telling people what they want you to do and as part of culture. Culture really only changes through a movement. So let's get down to the granular nitty-gritty of changing a culture and all the steps that you've got to take. Values, define and describe current value system. Beliefs, define and describe. Yeah, you're right, that is boring. Let's move on. Movements don't happen because someone in authority created a list of new requirements or standard operating procedures. They start because people believe in the value of the change. They know it will make the world a better place, and they're willing to do what's necessary to make it happen. Movements have a grander purpose in the service of others. Movements are never funded by a single source, and no one person is held responsible for results. They come about a lot like stone soup, and if you've never heard of that, we can talk about that at the end of the webinar. Someone promises something the rest of us can't imagine, and out of pure curiosity, the masses contribute, and suddenly there it is. The thing that we couldn't believe would happen is right there before our very eyes. Movements have inspirational figures. Movements have celebrations and events that stir the emotions. They have balloons. They have smoke machines. They have slogans and signs and results they want to achieve. They have symbols and hashtags, and they demand immediate action. They have buttons, lots of them. Movements have colorful flags and colorful characters. So let's just go over those ingredients. I didn't create a slide for each one, but let's just look at the soup that is an organizational cultural movement that you actually make happen. Sense of urgency, purpose in serving the needs of others, inspirational figures, leaders who resist the urge to silence the agents of change, members who believe in it, hopeful and encouraging messages, multiple sources of support, events that include everybody and incite enthusiasm, a way to know we've been doing things right, symbols of celebration, networks of believers, accountability, and criteria and evidence for success, and definitely that call to action. Now, this is the scary part. This is what a movement doesn't need. You don't have to be afraid of them. Tension between leadership and frontline, constant unnecessary distraction, angry special interest groups, widespread terminations, expensive consultants, protests or strikes, letting people think they're not expected to work, endless demands for more perks, all the scary things, financial losses, open season for criticism of management, 100% of anybody's time, lost productivity, blanket validation for any and all complaints, spoiling your brand, complicated software, neglected clients, and disruptive behavior. Not a single one of those is needed for a successful movement. Thank heaven. I actually added this slide at the end. I came back and put this in. This is something I saw in Harvard Business Review recently, and I don't actually like it that much, but I'm putting it up there because I want to look at some of the examples that you see out there of culture. Basically what this is 8 cultural styles. That's what the article was called. I don't agree with this because I don't think culture can be simplified to styles or personality types or anything like that. Culture is so ubiquitous to humanity and our organizations that we can't distill it down to small expressions like this. So I also noticed that each of these individual styles is misnamed. I mean, I wouldn't name them this. Enjoyment. I mean, we can create enjoyment in an organization and still have safety and order. We can have a sense of purpose and maintain authority at the same time. And in fact, the results one is the one that kind of irritates me the most because all these other focuses in cultural change have results. So to create a style that's focused on results, I think that's misleading about what you can achieve with all of these. There's so many options with culture. And I would encourage the people on this call to think critically about what you're seeing out there on culture. I think it's more layered and definitely more interesting than what you see out there. I think human beings are very complex creatures, and the relationships that we have with each other and the communities that we create cannot be distilled to something with this level of simplicity. So I urge caution on the materials that are out there. Actually, Jeff, I'm going to ask you about that later to see your experience in that vein. Yeah. So stages in a planned cultural movement. I've identified for the work that I do 5 stages. And these are pretty standard for any kind of change. First of all, creating awareness, and then going through a period of analysis of what you've got, and then setting those purpose and priorities, and then a culture building. This is where the rubber hits the road. This is where we create those profound revelatory experiences for people, where they can actually touch, hear, taste, feel, smell, all of the aspects of culture and how it will benefit them in the long run in their organization. And then along the bottom, I have the roles that people in the organization play throughout that process. I don't want to go through this in great detail. I also don't want anybody sitting there feverishly trying to write down notes for this, because you're actually going to get the book of culture, and all of that is in there. So just enjoy yourself. I can be entertaining if I try, and today I'm going to do my best. So just enjoy yourself and sort of feel this webinar. So one of the aspects of those 5 phases is a questionnaire that I created. And this was, a lot of it was out of frustration with the questionnaires that you find out there for employee engagement. I don't feel that they really get experiential data. So I created one that is much more experiential. And you'll notice that it feels different from the other surveys and questionnaires out there. And I'll show you some examples. So traditional employee engagement surveys ask questions a lot like this. Do you understand the strategic goals of the broader organization? Well, I certainly hope so. I don't really think, if that was posed to me, I don't think I'd be able to, if I was working for a large organization, I don't know if I'd be able to answer it. It's company-centric. And these other ones too, goals and objectives. Does your team inspire you to do your best work? Well, I hope so. These really are questions that they presume full self-awareness, but they also, they're kind of baffling. I don't know how I would really answer these. And plus, if I put out an employee engagement survey asking questions like this, and I got all of one answer for, say, for instance, do you understand the strategic goals of the broader organization? If I got yes from every single person that worked for me, I honestly would not have faith that that meant that that was true. You see what I mean? Like, not everybody understands a question like that and can actually translate it to their own employment experience. And one thing I do want to remind people is that just because information is valuable to have, and all of these questions, the answers would be valuable to have, doesn't necessarily mean it should be posed as a question to employees. And I do want to, I hope people on this call have seen this film, because when I see surveys like that one, this is what I think of, because they're so focused on what the company needs to know that they're not actually thinking about what the employee is capable of, accountable for, in terms of the information that they're providing about their own engagement. So with this in mind, this is what I created. An experiential questionnaire where employees don't actually have to translate their answers to survey speak before they answer. It's in their own language. It's expressed in terms that they experience every day. I'll give you an example. So here's one of them. I chose a culture hotspot. I have a couple of dozen culture hotspots. One of them is the lunch and break rooms. And then I provide 4 examples. On each side of the examples is extreme flexibility and extreme, I don't like to use the word rigidity, but I will, so that you know what I mean. And then in between are the moderate examples. This is where you're going to get most of your answers from 2 and 3. And in this case, it happens to be some people play cards sometimes. That's a moderate expression of culture in a lunch or break room. And then it gets a little further onto the flexibilities and the fun, and you get to things like game boards are actually painted onto the table, so we're told we're supposed to have fun when we're in that room. See the difference? And then at the end of each question, now that you've provided a spectrum of experience and some useful vocabulary, give them a chance, an open-ended chance to describe that experience. So that's the approach I took. I'll give you a couple of more examples just so you see what I mean. So this is social and team building events. So again, number 1 is extreme rigid. Number 4 is extreme flexible. And then in between, people will usually find something that relates to their experience. And because you've provided an open-ended option, you'll get to see some actual experiential data there. My animations are a little bit laggy. Behavioral controls and enforcement, there's another one. So here are the culture hotspots that I've identified. There are actually more of them. And in fact, many companies, what I would do with them is I would say, okay, look at these. If you could pick only 10 that you find extremely relevant to you, what would those be? Or if they wanted to ask all of them and we add some more. Basically what these are areas in which employees actually experience your organization and working for it. Morale, diversity, standard operating procedures, humor, branding, creativity, all these things that they can actually get their head around and express with words. What that does is it gets you so much more useful data. So let's look at one in particular and how the disparity between, and I don't use the word rigid, I say continuously consistent, because I don't want to make it seem as if I'm passing judgment on a company that does the continuously consistent route. There's nothing wrong with that. You get good results out of that. I just want to get a sense of the space in between, the flexible and continuously consistent. So if we do it with dress code, which is an easy one that employees experience every day, a flexible dress code, these are the benefits it provides. Employees have physical comfort for working longer hours. I very much appreciate being able to wear sneakers in an office, especially if I'm working late. People feel more welcome and authentic when they can wear jeans on a Friday or even the rest of the week. And it also encourages a sense of informality and fun. So you get some benefits out of that, but you also might get some nightmares. And what the continuously consistent culture does is reduces those surprises, the low-cut dresses, and the garage cleaning pants, and it reduces the number of times we have to send people home, but it also helps maintain a more professional image. There's benefits with each one. So you actually kind of get a would you rather exercise with your culture. And I grabbed some really great would you rathers off the internet yesterday because they're everywhere. So it's basically have to read aloud every word you read or sing everything you say aloud. Well, I love to sing, so I think I'd have to choose the sing. It's kind of one of those things where, depending on the person, everybody has a threshold for pain and a desire for specific pleasure. Make sense? So whatever pain you can endure for the pleasure that you want, that's kind of what you get out of this exercise of going through all those little culture hotspots. Whenever I talk to my husband-to-be, I'm usually singing, "Brian, did you take out the garbage?" That kind of thing. Like, it brightens up the day. You should try it. So let's get on to COVID. We're at 3:37 already. Sorry, that went a little long, but we're going to focus completely on COVID now. So COVID-19 is one of those controlled experiments that is not going to happen again in this lifetime. At least I certainly hope it doesn't. This is one of those things where everything is affected. And there's a list there of all the things. And everyone in your office will probably have gone through 3 or 4 of these. And you can just looking at those things on that list. It goes from the mild discomfort of boredom all the way to perhaps even a death in the family. So there's a spectrum of suffering out of and duress out of COVID-19 that really kind of gives us a window into how our culture provides the elasticity that an organization needs to respond quickly and effectively to something like this. So this is the exercise that I'm going to recommend to the team. You're going to ask 4 questions, and you're going to do this by yourself. You're not going to share this with anybody until it's done. And you're going to ask this question of yourself, and you're going to ask it in terms of all the people that work for you, at least just in your department. It wouldn't be possible to do that for thousands. But if you have up to 50 people, you can do this exercise effectively. How did your team respond to the crisis before it affected you, really? And then when it started to affect you, shutting down, people were panic buying groceries. And then when it was full swing and the death toll was rising and social distancing was fully in place. And then, and this hasn't even happened for some of us, when the rules began to relax and reopening became the topic of the day. So Ontario still has not even said, I don't even think we've set a date for reopening. So we're not even there yet. I know that some states have set a reopening date. Some provinces in Canada have done it. So this is on the horizon. Anyways, with this question, you have 9 possible answers, depending on how your people responded to this crisis. The answers are actually all the same for every question. What this is going to do is, first of all, you're going to see the variety of coping strategies within your team and stress management, but you're also going to see the progression over the 4 stages of the crisis. And some people that were senior, I feel nothing at the beginning, may surprise you at stage 2 and 3 and become nail biters. It depends on their threshold for stress. And that kind of gives you a sense of how they will process the experience. Some of them will be senior, I feel nothing all the way through. What you're going to do is you're going to create a spreadsheet with those 4 questions. And you're going to have this beside you, these 9 answers. And you're going to assign a personality to each of them. Now, this does not mean that that person is a Chicken Little forecaster every day of their life. This just means that this was their response to that particular crisis. And what that gives you is not a personality type, not a style. What that gives you is a window into their defaults, a window into the habits that they believe are acceptable and commensurate with the experience that they're having. So you might have a nail biter at the beginning who becomes a preemptive freaker outer, but they, in fact, process it all a little bit faster. And by the time the smoke clears, they're actually more of a leader and action taker at the end. You might have opportunists working for you, people who saw this and said, we got to buy some stocks. We got to call clients. We got to make the best of this. My son is only 23 years old, and he has made a couple $1,000s on his stocks. 23 years old. He really amazed me. I didn't know he had these abilities until he got into his 20s. This is just how he responds to a crisis. And then there's the medicinal laughter guy or gal, extremely valuable human being to have on the team. And so what we do with the Book of Cultures, we actually give some background on each of these responses. Don't underestimate the value of a medicinal laughter person to the organization. They have a highly evolved coping mechanism. And you can put that to work. You can get that person involved in cultural growth and movements. A morale ambassador, somebody with a sense of humor and the ability to make others laugh, that's extremely valuable in a crisis. Definitely resist the urge to shut that person down because you've got to get work done. I mean, you kind of have to give that person some leeway, especially in a crisis, because they are providing an enormous service to others. It sets people at ease. It also opens their minds to new ideas and new ways of doing things. The Chicken Little forecaster, we know the sky is falling with this person, but they also, from a strengths perspective, they have keen eyes and ears for danger. They sense it coming sooner than other people. They also have a vivid imagination when it comes to worst case scenarios. You can totally put those guys and gals into risk management and their imagination will do the work of seeing what could possibly happen here with the worst case scenario. What could go wrong? Harness this energy, put it to good use. And in fact, what that will do is it will distract that person from the panic and get them focused on the task, which is what they really need to begin with. The only drawback with these people is you have too many of them. You might have to create some reparations around that, because they do definitely stymie innovation and growth. Senora, I feel nothing. This is the one that lives kind of separated from the crisis. They have nerves that they either have nerves of steel or they live in denial, whichever one. They're usually pretty good in a crisis, but they might explode at some later date. They can sometimes, you can use them to get work moving. They definitely do keep their wits about them. And if you have a lot of them, it might indicate that your people have learned to shut off their emotions because it's not safe for them to show their emotions. And that might actually be indicative of your culture, which you might not necessarily want. The nail biter. Very little good comes from persistent worry. So this person needs distractions. Pair them with the medicinal laughter guy, or the nurturer. That's a good one. It's doubtful you have many of these because they don't get a lot done, especially in a crisis. Sometimes certain people will fret and worry about a specific thing, which blows my mind, and other things doesn't bother them at all. So if they're not bothered by disease or bacteria or things like that, this whole thing probably wasn't that difficult for them. But then a food shortage, that freaks them out. You know, everybody's got their thing. We're very complex creatures. Mr. Hermes, how can I make a difference? That's the nurturer. This is the natural mother, the one who takes care of everybody else. Always looking around for a cause, always looking around for a way that they can make a difference for people. They're very quick to forgive or even, unfortunately, make excuses for shitty behavior. They are very keenly tuned in to others' suffering. It's good to put these people to work on community initiatives, especially during a crisis. It's a great way to focus that energy. Or organizing self-care events, yoga, meditation, mental health things. That's a great place to put them. If you have lots of these, good for you, because your organization is full of carers and they're going to make good things happen in this world. So that's definitely a good sign for your culture. The opportunist, as I said, my 23-year-old son, always thinking about advantages. How can we get the advantages? This is what they see. In fact, it's kind of like when they look around, the advantages have little lights around them. That's the way their brain works. This person should definitely be in business development, if that's part of your organization. Also, they tend to be conspiracy theorists. They would say things like COVID-19 was engineered by the Chinese to sink Western economies, which isn't really that far-fetched. But anyways, this is the kind of person that thinks about, okay, who's exploiting an advantage here? And what are they getting out of it? The social feelings manager, talking it out with friends. Excellent stress management strategy. This person usually has good awareness of their own feelings, works them through, cooperating with others. I can't think of a better way to do it. Might not be enormously independent, but that's okay. You want your team to work together to solve problems. Put them into conflict resolution. Let them rely on each other for support and give them the opportunity to take advantage of that support system that they've built together. Let them take long coffee breaks and long lunches. They need it. This is what they've developed in order to cope. I would never encourage a manager or leader to put a stop to any of that. Unless it's excessive. But this is how they're managing stress, and they're doing it in a very healthy way. And the preemptive freaker outer, we know that person. They're not actually experiencing that level of anxiety that you see on the surface. I think some of them enjoy the attention. My grandmother was like that. She would freak out, and then everybody, oh, grandma, is everything all right? And she loved that. Couldn't get enough of it. If you have more than one of these, or even several, stress management courses might be in order. Try not to indulge freakouts too much because they get addicted to the attention. This person does well when there is no crisis. They're usually extremely effective. So if you're preemptive before they're preemptive, you can usually get a lot out of them. And then finally, save the best for last, the leader action taker. I hope for your sakes that you all have people like this in your organization who see a crisis coming and immediately you got to put things in place so that they can weather that storm. They're the ones who gather supplies. They're the ones who reach out to resources in the community. They're the ones who think about what they should do to protect each other and to get through a crisis. With these people, the best thing to do is to provide guidance, but let them take the reins because they're not going to let you down. And you're going to have to learn to let go with them because they can't take much micromanaging. It drives them crazy because they're extremely capable and they know it. Good for you if you've got these ones. So now, this is our final exercise, and I left 10 minutes for some discussion. I want all of you to be able to ask me questions and go back to some slides if we want to. Here's kind of an example of the spreadsheet that you'll be creating for those 4 questions that you're going to ask. You're going to put the names of your team on the left, and then you're going to show their responses, and then you're going to take a look at the whole picture of that micro database that you've created of responses to a crisis. And you're going to listen to what it tells you. How many of the leader manager or the leader action takers did you have? If you have many of them, you're doing great. That, my friends, is your culture. And good for you. If you have a lot of freaker outers, maybe it's time to think about open discussions in your organization about managing stress and crisis, because there's going to be more of them. We might not have another COVID-19, but we're going to have crises. We're going to have climate crises. We're going to have market crises. And even small emergencies, small things like safety infractions or angry clients, even those things require us to manage stress under duress. It's an extremely useful part of your culture. So I'm going to stop talking now. I'm going to open up the chat window. We'll go back. I'm going to stop sharing for now, but we will go back.